Everyone, and a very warm welcome from London virtually, where I and several of our other panelists currently are. I'm Becca Farnum. I'm a 2012 Marshall Scholar who made my way over here as one of the graduate scholarship applicants and never managed to leave the UK very happily. So we'll talk a little bit about some various personal journeys. We've had folks kind of go all around the world and come back to the UK, go all around the world and land in the US. And who have just arrived in the UK on their Marshall Scholarship with us today. So the four of us will start by speaking a little bit about our own Marshall Scholar journeys, and then we'll open it up to questions. Just very briefly, the Marshall Scholarship is an ambassadorial and outreach program that brings American students to the UK for postgraduate study. Any field of study, any university in the UK, and you'll hear a little bit about the diversity of subjects as well as cities via these four panelists. And you may study for anywhere between 1 and 3 years on Marshall funding, and we'll talk a little bit more about those kind of different formats as we go. So I'm going to turn over first to Michael to speak a little bit about his journey there and back again.
That's right. So I was a math major in undergrad, but I did a kind of weird dual major in math and then like everything of math. So history, sociology, philosophy, culture, literature of math. And for me, initially, the Marshall Scholarship was meant to be a place where I could explore all of that second category of things before going on to a PhD in mathematics back in the United States. That was the plan. So I got to the UK. I studied in history and philosophy of science at Cambridge for my first year. And then my second year, I went up to the University of Edinburgh to study the sociology of science. So to get all the three categories covered. And while I was in the UK, I sort of found that what was actually really exciting to me about mathematics and what I liked most about it was the history and sociology and philosophy side of it. And so my Marshall Scholarship was the start of a kind of transition or sort of reprioritization of professional interest for me. I did end up going back to the US, but it was to a history of science program rather than a mathematics program. Did my PhD in the history of mathematics at Princeton. Then I did a postdoc actually right before my current position. I had 2 months working at Northwestern in the Science and Human Culture program. So a little bit of a local connection. And then immediately after that, came back to my old department at the University of Edinburgh, and that's where I've been working ever since. So I'm a historian of science at the University of Edinburgh in the Science, Technology, and Innovation Studies department. So that's my journey.
Wonderful, thanks, Michael. And over to Patti.
I'm Patti, and I am an Evanston resident. So that's my connection to Northwestern. I have no other connection. I did not go to Northwestern. And I went to the University of Michigan, and where I was, by the way, a math major. I had a double major. Yeah, I don't know anything about math. I mean, but anyway, I was a math major. And but then I studied English at Cambridge, and that was in the days, sorry, that was 1978. So that was in the days when most people did not split it. So I think this is totally fascinating, hearing about people splitting their years and doing them at different places. That wasn't something that was done at the time. And also it wasn't that normal to like do something different than what you had been studying. So I'm really glad that people are doing that now. So I studied English at Cambridge, and then I went to work for the Financial Times straight after I graduated, and the Financial Times is a British newspaper, and I've worked for them for 40 years. I just retired, and I had about 20 years in Africa and 8 years in China and 12 years in DC and a number of years all over the place. But I particularly wanted to live in Chicago as my last posting, so I requested Chicago. And I chose Evanston because I had, at the time, high school kids, and I wanted them to attend high school in Evanston, which has a very interesting multiracial high school that was the kind of high school I would have wanted to go to if such things had existed when I was in high school. So I look forward to hearing everybody else. Thanks.
Thanks, Patti. And all the way on the other end of the spectrum, we have someone who is barely finishing up their first year as an active scholar. So hello to Zack.
Hello, everybody. So I am Zack, and as Becca mentioned, I am in my first year here. I'm currently in Cambridge, but I am going to school at King's College London. So I guess my journey, I graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy just last year, and I finished with mechanical engineering, and my studies have kind of shifted as Patti mentioned that things things have changed to where now you can take different degrees. So my studies are kind of all over the place. They make sense in my head, but I'm not maybe not to everybody else. But I did mechanical engineering in my BSc, and now I'm studying global health with an emphasis in conflict and security. I My interest with the conflict and security obviously is I'll be in the military, and I want to be a doctor in the military. So hopefully, I'm trying to go to med school after the Marshall. So I'm doing 1 year at KCL doing the global health conflict and security pathway, and then my second degree will actually be a little bit more tied to engineering, but still focusing on health. It'll be in kind of bioengineering, biomedical engineering, and looking at a specific application of neural implants, but not. We can talk more about it if you want, but just more tech stuff. So that's what I'm doing, and yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed it thus far. It's been quite a different experience than previous Marshall Scholars. I believe I've been totally in person, or sorry, not in person, totally online, and we can talk more about that if you have questions about what my experience has been with that. But I'll leave it for there for now.
Great, thanks very much to Zack. And just to round out a little bit more, and then we will take a pause to talk a little bit about the Chauvin conviction that just came in. So I'm Becca, as I said. I was a 2012 scholar. I studied international relations and anthropology at Michigan State University, and then came to the UK to look at environmental politics, particularly doing a water security master's at the University of East Anglia, which is about 45 miles northeast of where Zack is right now. And then went up to Scotland to do a Master of Law in International and Environmental Human Rights Law at the University of Edinburgh, and then came down to do my PhD at King's College London, where Zack is currently studying, but not currently physically located, looking at geography and working with community groups in Morocco, Lebanon, and Kuwait on how they partner with nature to do community building. So there you have just kind of a taste of, right, we kind of span the gambit from politics to humanities and math to tech. And one of the really exciting things about the Marshall is that many of us are blending those, kind of traditional silos in a lot of ways. And that is really something that the Marshall Scholarship does really well. Zack mentioned kind of aiming to go back to med school. So I will use that as a launching point to also talk a little bit about the different structures of the Marshall Scholarship. The kind of standard is a 2-year program. Many current scholars in the past kind of decade or so have used that to do 2 one-year masters. In the UK, most master's degree are 1 year. In the US, they're often 2 years. So 2 years of funding means that you can do 2 one-year masters back to back. That gives you the chance to potentially study in 2 very different kinds of cities, as well as do 2 different kinds of study. So many will kind of, do a humanities degree and then a policy, orienting around that humanities degree, or do the kind of hard tech and then the policy around it, as Zack is doing. You may also, though, with kind of especially med school, vet school, law school, etc. aspirations, do a 1-year program. There are fewer of those, but they do exist, and the Marshall makes that an option for those who don't want to be in school maybe quite forever. You can kind of take that year out in between undergrad and the next grad school program to kind of look at something from a slightly different perspective in the UK. And then there is not formally 3 years of funding through the Marshall for PhDs or DPhils, as they're known at Oxford. But the vast majority of British universities will kind of find the funding for a third and or fourth year for Marshalls who choose to begin a PhD study right away as Marshall Scholars. So there are all kinds of options. I think what's really kind of necessary is that you do your homework and kind of figure out which of those options makes most sense for the trajectory and the kind of way that you're seeing all of the threads of your studies and hobbies coming together.